Welcome back, everyone. I'm happy to see you all returned for another exciting episode, so stay tuned since you won't want to miss this one. If you love hearing these encounters, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. That would help this little channel grow immensely, and thank you for that. And if you have an encounter story of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com, and it might just be featured in a future episode. Now, let's dive right into these stories. This sighting occurred at my family hunting camp in Austin, Pennsylvania, while participating in the late muzzleloading deer season. We were doing an evening hunt, and it began at 2 p.m. While I was in a tree stand near a small clearing, my father and grandfather were pushing from the north and west. The hunt was quiet and uneventful up until the legal shooting hours ended at around 5:15. By this time, I had broke the stand and was walking back to the truck where we would all meet up. The small hike takes no more than 20 minutes. As I began to walk back, the sun had set and the night was setting in, so it was dark by the time I hit the road that led to the truck. This is when I began to hear knocking sounds that appeared like it was coming from the direction where the clearing by the stand was. I paused for a second, initially discarding the noise, and continued walking. Then only after my next 2 steps, I heard the knocking again from the same direction. So I stopped walking and listened for a few more minutes to hear more knocking, but from a different direction and considerably further away. At this point, I began to feel uneasy, so I picked up my pace, and when I met up with my father and grandfather at the truck, I asked them if they had heard any knocking noises while in the woods, and they both confirmed they did. In fact, hear the noises. We drove around for a little bit to see if we could find something that might explain the noises. But both that drive and the rest of the week we were hunting remained uneventful. I have grown up around here nearly all my life. While I was living in Bradford, a town north of Searcy, I had an encounter with a Bigfoot. I thought I could tell you this story, and maybe you can help me with some of my conclusions. I think I was around 11 or 12 years old. At the time, I was living with my grandparents in Bradford. When I say in Bradford, that simply means we had a Bradford zip code. We had a farm about 6 miles west on 87. Lots of pasture land and woods in nearly every direction, close to some hilly areas. It happened around 9 or 9:30 a.m. one summer morning. I woke up and I was laying in bed. I could hear my grandmother and my mom talking in the dining room. I got a feeling somebody was watching me, so I turned to look out the window, and there she was looking at me. She was very tall, more of a slim muscular build and a reddish-brown hair. It was very peaceful. I never felt scared or threatened by what I was seeing. As this creature stared at me, I simply stared back. My curiosity was getting the best of me. I wanted to look at more of it. As I tried to get out of bed gently, I put my foot down on the rug that lay on top of a wooden floor. I lost my footing and fell to my knees. She stared at me still and seemed to have a look of confusion. We just looked at each other. Still, I never felt scared. Being that I was so intrigued by this creature, I wanted to see him, her, or touch him, her, or something. When I tried to make a move towards the door, just as my shoulder turned, she took off running to the west. I took off running through the house towards the kitchen and out the back porch so I could try to see him. I saw him running away towards my neighbor's barn. As I watched him run, I noticed how odd it ran in comparison to a human. It ran with its hands flat, palms back, and very long strides. One thing that I didn't notice until many years later, the window she was looking at me through is very high. I'm 6 feet 5 inches tall and I can only look through the bottom pane, and it was looking through the top. This is something that has been on my mind for years. I have done some research on Bigfoot and Sasquatch. It has me asking more questions. Thank you for letting me share this moment with you. I was at my family cabin in Harrison Valley, Pennsylvania on the 8th through to the 11th of October of 2021. My sighting began on Friday evening on the 8th when me and my girlfriend had arrived at the cabin at 8 p.m. When we were parking, we noticed a bunch of deer in the yard, and I began to turn the high beams on the car to look at the deer. We then went inside and I grabbed the spotlight, and I was scanning through the yard and I saw 2 sets of bright red eyes walking to the field. I have never seen something like this before. I'm an outdoorsman and I have hunted and fished first since I was 8 years old. I then began to sit on our balcony and look around more after I had lost visuals with the shining eyes. I could hear branches being snapped. I had a very weird feeling that I've never had there before at the cabin, that I was being watched, and it was very eerie. On Saturday the 9th of October of 2021, I was sitting outside on the porch and I heard a pack of coyotes start howling. In the 10 years that I've been at the cabin, I have never heard that before. Then I began to hear more branches breaking from different angles. And once again, I had that feeling that I was being watched and I was not alone. I had also noticed a long impression behind a house that looks like a footprint up against the cabin by the window, but it was not enough to say that it was from a Bigfoot, but at the same time, it was adding up. Then on the 11th of October 2021 at around 9:30 a.m., there seemed to have been an abnormal amount of deer in the yard, and they were all skittish. I began to look around with my rifle scope and see what was causing them to act like that. I happened to notice something standing at the tree line at the top of the field that was rather tall, and I thought at first it was a bear, as they are common in the area. But then I also noticed how it was standing straight up and down, and the head shape was oval like a human's head. I was amazed and I couldn't believe what I was seeing at first. When I put the scope to it, I could see the indentations to the eye socket. The body was very massive. I continued to hold the scope to it, and then I began to realize it knew I could see it, and I knew it could see me. I could see it slowly moving its head from left to right, as if it was scanning around the area. I then heard 4 individual whistles from towards the back of the property, and that's when I noticed another Sasquatch not far from the first, and I could still see the first one. The second one was staying quiet to try to remain hidden, but it was moving through the bushes on the ground. Eventually it stopped moving as if they had sat down. I watched it for about 30 minutes. The property has a big pond and plenty of cover to hide and plenty of food. Around that time, I had to leave and I left them be. I can hardly remember the date, but I do remember the events leading up to the sighting. It was a very warm fall day when my cousin and myself decided to do some hunting on horseback. The area that we hunted was in and around the foothills of the Rockies on the Blackfeet Reservation in Big Sky country of Montana. We had decided halfway into the trip to just take a ride and wait for Lady Luck to bring us something during the ride. All day was pretty good as far as the ride went, but I know that everybody still had the idea of getting a deer on their mind. We had decided to ride home through a brushy trail, hoping to run into some game before we made it home. Most of the day had gone and the evening sun was warming our backs as we made our way back home. We approached the trailhead. My cousin's horse was reluctant and fought the bridle bit for a while. We thought it was just because of it being green broke. Once inside the brush, a good ways into it, our horses started stepping very softly and snorting once in a while, as if something didn't agree with its sense of smell. I could see the opening of the trail and would also mean the end of the trail. One of my cousins was just about to say something when our horses began jumping in different directions, like they were scared of something. The first thing on all of our minds was a bear. We began looking in different directions to try and find the location of the bear. I don't remember who was the first to sight what it was we saw. I just heard him swear and asked the rest of us to look. We looked in the direction he was pointing and saw this very tall thing walking fast. Looked like it was running on 2 legs beside us and then turned in front of us. This thing crossed the trail in front of us about 40 feet and stopped at the edge of the brush. It just stared at us as if in the same amount of amazement as we were in it, and then just disappeared into the trees just as fast. The best way I can describe it is probably the hairiest man I have ever seen, well past 6 feet tall. It was hard to determine the size, but the branches that we found broken the next day were from 6 feet to about 8 feet in some places. Some footprints were found in places where the ground was soft, and along the trail we followed towards the mountains. This was the only live sighting we had since then, and this was in 1982 when I was 14 years old. I am now 61 and probably the first one to tell anyone what we saw that day. That's going to be it for today. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. A special thanks goes out to the current channel members: Elizabeth, Jim, Diana, and Teresa. Thank you guys for your support, and I really enjoy the Monday chat sessions we have. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And lastly, I'd like to wish you all a fantastic week ahead, and be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode on Ontario Cryptids.